Hello and welcome to another episode of Invalid Entry. My name is James Taylor. It is the 24th of December, which means we are on the last day of Advent of 24 libraries, Python libraries in 24 days. And today is kind of a little bit of a sad one, if I'm honest with you. It's a library which I'm really personally attached for. It's called RamlWrap. This is it. This is the library. And at the start of this series, I had a video about what makes a good library when you're doing library selection, looking at it, going, okay, how old is this library? How well maintained is it? It's got a release on the 19th. It's actually going to have a release very shortly. But the reality is this library is going to die. It's going to stop being supported by its maintainers. They're going, how do I know that? Well, I am the maintainer. This is my library. And they're going, well, there's 8 contributors. What do these people think? Well, I know these people. I know all these people. I went to 3 of these people's weddings. One of them's a robot. That doesn't count, right? So let's reduce that down to 7. It's significant personal interactions with these people. It was built by us as a group back in the day where Raml and Swagger, people may never have heard of Raml. It was an alternative to Swagger when Swagger was still in its infancy. It's fallen by the wayside now. Really, now there's a thing called the OpenAPI, standard OpenAPI spec, which allows you to do everything that Raml did. So Raml was a YAML-based version. The reason we liked it wasn't because of that. The reason we liked it was because of its ability to do JSON schema, which you couldn't do in Swagger at the time. You now can in the OpenAPI standard. And we like JSON schema because it fits into our workflow. We can grab the JSON schema file out and use it in test to make sure an API is returning what it should be returning consistently. Quality is important. So yeah, the problem with this library is that it's pretty hard to use. It's actually, once you've got it installed and working, it's perfectly fine. Getting a package up and running with it is a pain. The documentation is non-existent. It has a couple of really cool features. What it does, it wraps around the URL dispatcher in Python, and basically it parses your RAML and generates your URLs for you. If you haven't stubbed any of those, if you haven't actually created APIs, functions for those APIs or views for those APIs, it will just return the examples. So it's got a really cool feature where you can say, hey, I would like to, this. If you're working with a developer and they're trying to call your system, you haven't written it yet, you can say, well, these are what the APIs will be, define them in RAML or Swagger, and then run it. And the APIs exist on day one, and then you can start coding out those APIs. But they can start hitting them against your test server whilst you're still writing the code behind them. That's really cool. It also does validation, so if you've got schema validating the inputs, it will validate that, running the checks against it before it passes it to your function. So that just saves you writing the same checks which is defined in the RAML or the schema in the first place. The problem I'm having is I wrote the thing. Over here on the left, just behind my face, I'm trying to run the demo right now, but and I can't get the thing to work. I'm getting URL patterns issues, I'm getting all kinds of issues. That often is a sign of code rot. Code rot is basically you have code that works in a year, it doesn't work, probably because a library is updated behind the scene, or it's running a version of Django I haven't quite tested against. So here we are. Here's where the real crux of this library. This is a decision we have to make. Are there other libraries out there that do what we want them to do? There are other rapid prototyping API libraries out there for Django, but are there any which work how we want to do, which is I want an example, I want the auto documentation, and I want a mapping function to say that URL maps to this function. There are other API languages out there. Some of those I like, some of those I don't like, some of them don't do what I want to do. So I think the real question here is, do we make version 3? We're on version 2 right now. This has been going since 2017. So it's got a lot of heritage in here. We've got a lot of understanding. As a personal journey, this has been amazing. When I launched this library back in 2017, we already had it internally at this point for about a year or so. We'd already been versioning it for a year. So we dumped it on the internet at version 1 with a whole bunch of quality already built into it. What we found over the years where things like the PyRAML library didn't get updated very quickly, we wanted it fast, so we actually built our own parser using PyYAML. But we found that there's basically 2 halves of the library. One is the documentation system, and one is the which generates HTML pages of the RAML that you make, which is really cool. And the other one is the actual API URL dispatcher system, and they use a different parser internally, and I always said I'd come back and modify that to be a single parser. And also I was thinking at the same time I'd rip that parser out so it would be an independent, and you could wrap it around Flask or Bottle at the same time as wrapping around Django, so it will work for Flask as well as Bottle. I thought that'd be quite cool. So here we are, we're end of the year, and we're kind of making a decision about whether we decide to continue with RamlWrap or whether we throw it away. And at the moment, we're definitely going to throw away version 2. I think there's one more release to go, but just for a minor patch to make it Django 4 compliant, which probably fixes this problem I'm having down here. And I think that's where we are, really just looking at our options in this library, because we know we're not paid to maintain this. This is an independent project. I know the guys at my office, at my work, they do update it because they use it so much. They do update it and push it back, and I think they like that, it being a public thing. But yeah, this is the issue, is it doesn't really have a big follower. It doesn't really have a lot of people using it, and I wonder if I did put more effort into it, it would. But do we want to, or do we just let go, release its pip library after another year maybe, and say it was a good experiment, it was a good experience, good learning curve. Good learning curve things how talks, and I think there's a whole video in just how to write a library, maintain a library, and how to act responsibly in the ecosystem. But yeah, that's what it is. It is what it is. But now we have some decisions to make on this library, and I think that's going to be an interesting period of time. So there it is, RamlWrap. RamlWrap is my 24th library, and I was really hoping to do a demo. I had a demo set up. I had you import the API, you basically do this, and it runs, but it's not working. And unfortunately, I'm pushed for time, and it already 6 minutes here without even doing that demo. I think that's really showing what you have to do. If you go do a library, you do have to put work and effort into the support and documentation, and then you've also got to promote it. You've got to get people using it. So, which is as difficult sometimes as other things. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes that's incredibly hard. So, yeah, that's it. 24 libraries, and the last one turns out to be, just a little bit sad. Just a little bit sad. Anyway, I've really enjoyed doing this. I have looked at a lot of libraries in the course of doing this. People suggested libraries. I was going to re-record yesterday or the day before yesterday's library, but I didn't have time before it went out. I'm afraid I ran out of time on that one. Some of the libraries I think were amazing. Some of the libraries I didn't do were also interesting. I stayed away from things, the very big frameworks. I stayed away from Django and things like that because they're more framework than just a library. They're like a collection of libraries. I also stayed away from the very big libraries like Pandas and SciPy, things like that, which are very, very big. Impossible to give an overview of, and I think that it's been interesting. The one of the libraries made me very, very angry, and I still am angry about one of the libraries that I didn't show. And then maybe I will do a separate video of that in the new year. Spend some time really taking it apart and going, this is terrible. This should be better. We could do a better library than this. And yeah, it is what it is. It has been eye-opening for me, the options out there, just the decision making of which libraries I would and wouldn't do. I started out with a list of 28 libraries. I did about 15 of the libraries from that list, and the other ones I crossed off because I felt they were too close to other things on the list. There were a couple of overlaps, like wget and RamlWrap. Sorry, wget and request overlap slightly. But yeah, as a review of the list, 25 libraries, or 24 libraries. I'm pretty happy with this series. I'm pretty happy with the work I put in. I'm pretty happy with the output, and I want to thank everybody for their support and everyone for how they contributed and talked to me about the libraries, both in the messages and in Discord and other methods. They've talked to me, Twitter and things like that. I've really enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll do this again next year. If I'm honest with you, it does take a quite extraordinary amount of time to put together this and with the deadline every day of it coming out, and then with other Christmas preparations, well, my family, my wife in particular, has been incredibly forgiving of me again for doing this again. But yeah, it's been great. Thank you very much, and I will hopefully see you all in the new year. And I hope everyone has a very happy holiday, very relaxing, restful, away from work holiday, and I will see you all in the new year. Thank you very much.